Hi everyone, it's Rebecca Jones here, the Tippy Connect liaison, coming to you live from Greater Lafayette Commerce in the beautiful downtown Lafayette. I've got our lovely Subaru car behind me. Don't worry, I'm not standing out in traffic. Today we're going to be starting our Lean series. So we have not only Tippy Connect members here, but also Wabash Valley Lean members here as well. So hi guys, thanks for coming today. We have the king of lean himself here, Doug Ellenberger, who is here to discuss all things basic lean, intro to lean, give us kind of that overview of what is lean, what do we learn from it, how do we apply it to not only our professional life, but our daily life as well. So you guys can go ahead and say hi in the chat, use the chat function to post your questions, or you can use the Q&A function. A lot of you guys are named Doug Ellenberger because you used his link. So if you want to right click your name, you can change your name as well so we know who's here. And that's all I have. So Doug, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Rebecca. Rebecca is also going to be standing in as our technical expert today. So while I may be, as she said, the king of lean, I'm certainly not the king of virtual broadcasting here. So anyway, welcome Wabash Valley Lean Network folks. Welcome Tippy Connect young professionals. And we're going to talk a little bit about lean and process improvement. We've got a great range of people here today. We've got people here that could write books about lean. We've got people that do process improvement and lean every day in their work life. And we've got people that never even heard of lean before. So I'm going to try to make this a rewarding and valuable experience for everybody involved. So we got to get the slide deck to change here. Okay. So one of the things we're going to talk about is processes. And, you know, anything that's several steps can be a process. And this is one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite guys ever, Dr. Deming. And he says, if you can't describe what you're doing as a process, you really don't know what you're doing. And we're going to talk about that a little more as we go through. The agenda today, it's a very shallow dive into lean and process improvement. You know, you can sign up for 2-day seminars where they talk about lean basics. So we're going to cram this all into 1 hour and try to give you a little bit of an overview on lean and spark your interest. We're going to talk about the definition of lean, why it's important to you and your organization, and watch probably the most famous lean video there is called Toast Kaizen. Just a little bit about me, lifelong Hoosier, Purdue engineer, stayed in the Lafayette area, corporate leadership positions focused on improvement and growth throughout my career, small business founder and owner since 2003, and currently part of the Wabash Valley Lean Network. So Wabash Valley Lean Network, you know, what is that? That's not one of the companies we hear about a lot, but it's a member-driven organization, 125 plus companies, mostly in Indiana, but a few in Illinois, that meet once a month, one morning a month, focus on process improvement using the lean principles and tools. And it's a great way to learn, share, meet other people doing the same kind of work, improve, and network. I really think it's one of the best organizations when it comes to lean in the country. And I get told that by people that move in other urban areas and say, Doug, there's nothing like Wabash Valley Lean Network here. So we want to keep this organization in good shape and keep it growing. And this is just a picture of back in the day, before COVID, when we actually were able to meet together. So what is this lean and process improvement, and why should I be doing it, and why should I even care? Well, honestly, we're all facing brutal competition, right? It gets tougher every month, every year. And we're being asked to do more and more with less and less resources. Competitors are bigger than we are. They have more money to spend. We're all trying to do more with less. And while that's going on, we're being pushed to improve quality, get things done quicker, show better results, and all the time spend less money. A tough combination. So what is lean exactly? Well, my one sentence definition of lean would be providing the value that the customer wants and doing so with the least amount of waste in the organization. So let me say that again. Providing the value that the customer wants, so making the customer happy, and doing so with the least amount of waste in the organization, so as efficiently as possible. Make the customer happy as efficiently as possible. Hard to argue with that, right? But lean's a lot more than just that one sentence. It's a whole philosophy, and there's a tool set involved with lean to help you make all that happen. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go forward here. So where'd lean start at? You know, hard to tell. It started with manufacturing, spread to healthcare, and now used in almost all industries. Toyota, the Japanese car company, was actually the one that we give credit for pulling a lot of those principles together. Toyota developed it as the Toyota production system, and it expanded outside Toyota. Those tools and philosophies became known as lean in like the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. And as lean manufacturing was adapted and modified to fit other industries, it became known just as lean. So today we see lean in virtually all industries across the world. So you're thinking, Doug, you're going to talk about improving, but you know, we've already got a team in place and we really know what we're doing. I don't think I need this. And my company's different. This won't help my organization. And I don't know anything about any of this. Should I be doing it? And we tried before and got stuck and it died. Well, anybody that's doing lean has failures. It's not something you do right 100% of the time. And it takes a while to get going on before you get the knack for it. You know, and in most things you try to learn, you're going to fail, but you keep trying and you get better and eventually you succeed. And lean is very much like that. So it doesn't apply to me, but you know, this is just companies that we have in Wabash Valley Lean Network. I'm not talking about the whole world, but I would almost bet that no matter what your industry, you're listed here. And if you're not, I guarantee no matter what industry you're in, there's somebody doing lean. And not to name drop, but here's just a few of the folks and companies in Wabash Valley Lean Network. And it's far from a complete list, but as you can see, you know, healthcare, manufacturing, Wendy's, Casey's General Stores, Goodwill, a lot of the universities, Valpo, Purdue, IU, Ivy Tech, banks, Cliff Bar that makes those great protein bars and energy bars. But it's government, Walmart, banks. So it's quite a very varied group. And these are some of the larger companies, but it's also a lot of mid-size and smaller companies. So what's really in this for me? Well, leaders drive improvement within their organizations, their teams, and drive improvement within themselves. Lean can help you do that. Lean process improvement is also listed on new job postings anymore. You know, you may not need to be the leader, but people want you to have some experience. And having that lean experience, that lean knowledge on your resume is a plus. And lean thinking can make your job easier and simplify your home life. So we're going to fire up the Toast Kaizen video here. Often in the video, they talk about manufacturing, but obviously lean just isn't about manufacturing. So try to think of it in terms of your workplace. Bruce mentions Mr. Shingo and Mr. Ono. They're two of the founders of the Toyota production system. And several times Bruce uses Japanese terms, but he always gives an English translation. So we're going to watch the process of making toast in a kitchen before and then after some improvements. So watch this just not as making toast, but watch it with an eye for what we could improve, what we could do better. So with that, I'm going to let Rebecca flip the switch here, and we should go to the video.
The video that you're about to see has been created to demonstrate some of the basic philosophy and principles of the Toyota production system, or as we call it today, lean thinking, lean manufacturing, or lean administrative. The ideas apply equally to any segment of the business, but we take them into the kitchen to try to get them out of all of those areas so that people can watch without being encumbered by predispositions that they have about their current jobs. It is a go-see video where we ask people to watch and become engaged, which is also a critical part of being lean. So join us and enjoy. It's amazing what we can learn from our own intuition if we'll only watch and see what's going on in the process. Two of the most important points of what we call lean manufacturing involve direct observation of the process, and then once we understand what we see, effective use of countermeasures to remove the problems that we see, and in particular the use of what we call Kaizen. Kaizen is a Japanese word that means small change for the better. Many small changes for the better, and in particular, it means small changes that are created from the intuition, experience, and common sense of the people who do the work. Too often, we overlook these opportunities, and as Mr. Ono and Mr. Shingo at the Toyota Motor Works discovered, almost 9/10 of the time between paying and getting paid in our business involves waste, which can be identified through direct observation if we will only watch. So today we have a process for everyone to watch. Every shop floor, of course, is different, and we need to choose a shop floor which is easy to bring to many people and one in which you all can provide some intuition because you have done the process yourself. So we pick a very simple process, and that process is making toast. Now, it is a simple process, but it does involve a machine, a toaster, tools,
a knife,
conveyance equipment, a plate. It involves a customer. In this case, it's my wife is the customer, and it involves a person who is doing the work, and that will be me. So I invite you to come to my shop floor where we can watch the process very carefully and watch with an eye for improvement to try to understand what can be made better in this process. Watch the video, and then we'll get your thinking before we continue with an improvement. Making some toast for my wife. Honey, I made you some toast.
Is it raisin toast?
Okay, I hope you enjoyed watching the before condition, and I'll bet since you are watching with an eye for improvement, you saw lots of things that could be improved. This, in fact, is what happens when we truly have direct observation. You know, we're all so much creatures of habit that we come to work, all of us, trying to do a good day's work, and we work around the problems. You know, the common expression is whatever it takes to get the job done. We're not focused on improvement when we're trying to get our jobs done. We're just focused on trying to get things done in spite of all the problems that crop up. But this time you came to watch the process with an eye for improvement. And what are the things that you saw? I'll bet you saw, for example, that I did an awful lot of walking around. We call that waste of motion. You saw me walk back and forth, perhaps 4 times. You say, well, did that add any value to the function of making toast? So we look for that sort of thing and we try to reduce it. We look for ways to reduce steps in motion. And in fact, if we were able to move the toaster closer to the bread, that would reduce that particular motion altogether. This is what we call Kaizen, a simple improvement that can have a very big effect. One possibility, of course, would have been that I could have had a motorized track to move me back and forth. And Mr. Shingo would have called that a superficial improvement, because that would only be automating the waste of motion. He said, we need to find ways to truly reduce the kinds of waste that we see, not cover them up. Here's another example of motion. Motion is one of those wastes that's truly a people waste. Things that we must do in our jobs all require motion, but the question is how much motion? Because we would like to have as little as possible. When I was searching for the butter in the refrigerator, how much time should I spend looking? I had to dig through the refrigerator on several shelves until I found the butter. Now that would be one of those things that we would say is necessary to get the job done, and that's true, but it is waste. The customer does not pay when we are searching for things. And almost every job has this condition. Could be a pen, could be a calculator, could be a crescent wrench. You may be breaking a sweat looking for this part. You may spend a very long time, but it's not work and the customer doesn't pay for it. You know, motion is often very tiring, stressful, sometimes even dangerous. But we're used to it. It's just something that we're accustomed to. So we do it all the time. Mr. Shingo pointed out on a number of occasions that eliminating waste is not the problem. It's identifying it. It's actually being able to see it. And sometimes we're so familiar with things that aren't working that we've forgotten about them. So we need to go back and observe directly, observe our own work, just like when we watch toast, in order to understand where those wastes are. When you eliminate motion from your work, you're making the job easier. You're making the day better because you're making problems that you've had disappear. And when that happens, you can do more work. It won't be more tiring, but it will be more work. Okay, so that's just one of the 7 wastes which Mr. Shingo identified. Here's another one. Did you get a little nervous and antsy watching me wait for that toast? Well, he said, you know, waiting is a big part of a process. The customer doesn't pay for waiting. There are times when waiting is part of the process where it's important. For example, if it's important for something to age or glue to dry, or if it's important for us to take a rest occasionally. This causes a delay in the process, but this is important because it's necessary as part of the work. But if we are waiting for a toaster, which is taking a very long time, what else could we be doing during that time? You may think that it's easy to find out what to do, but in fact, the person's time is very different from the machine's time, and often we pay people to stand and watch machines. Sometimes we buy a big machine and it's making defects for us, so we pay somebody to stand and be sure that it doesn't make a defect. This doesn't value the employee, and it surely does not improve our productivity. So there's another waste, waiting. In fact, you know, there's a lot of waiting that goes on, not only for people. In fact, most often in factories and in offices, we don't wait. People don't wait, but material waits, information waits. It waits in inboxes, it waits on pallets, it waits even on trucks. It looks like it's moving, but actually it's just sitting there, it's waiting. And Mr. Shingo said, customers don't want to pay for that. That's increasing the time between paying and getting paid. That's another waste. Now, occasionally, we do have to move that material. We have to move it from point A to point B. And you can't make a part, or you can't run a business without some transportation. You need to move things around. But how far? Well, that has to do with the distance between operations. And in fact, there was some transportation and another waste of storage, picking things up and putting them down. How many times did I pick the toast up and put it down in the process of toasting? The function here, of course, is making toast, and that involves picking it up once anyway, but how many times did I pick it up? And how many storage points were there? Often when we think of storage, we think only of the warehouse. And some storage in a warehouse may be very legitimate, but why everywhere else? Are our factories and offices warehouses, or are they workplaces? So we need to be able to see those wastes and identify them as waste, because every time we are storing information or material, we're not really adding value to it. Customer doesn't want to pay for that. We can't put at the bottom of the invoice, this product was stored many times, so we're charging you extra for it. So we call that value added from the customer standpoint. What is the value that the customer expects in the process? Here's another waste. Defects. Were there any defects here? Well, in this case, there was a very big defect. There was scrap. There were 4 pieces of scrap. And why? Because I wasn't making what the customer needed. Now, obviously, in this case, it would be easy for me to ask the customer, but very often, a factory or an office is set up working on things which are not needed today. Maybe needed next week, maybe needed next month, but they're not needed now. And if we're not careful, we'll end up producing something which we'll have to scrap. Now, there's a couple of other wastes that I haven't covered yet, and let me just mention one now. Processing. Sometimes in the processing itself, there are things which don't make sense. We do them because that's the way the process is designed, but maybe we need to look at the process more closely to understand how it can be improved. The way I had to cut butter in that first condition is an inadequate process. Sure, the function of buttering toast requires that we cut the butter, but nobody says it should be as hard as a rock. And of course, who can identify that waste? Now, of course, there needs to be a condition in your business when a waste like that is identified that we can make an improvement. In the real world, sometimes a person might identify a waste like that, speak to their boss, and their boss might say, you know, we have people who solve those problems. Why don't you just quit complaining and get back to your job? So simple things often are not fixed because we don't observe directly. The last waste, and the worst waste of all, we call overproduction. Overproduction is producing information or material either too soon or in too great a quantity. Now, in our traditional thinking, overproduction isn't even a meaningful word. How could it be a problem to produce more? Because we'll sell it. We'll sell it eventually. Or if we're able to do it sooner than later, why not? But if you think about overproduction, if we make something and we can't use it right now, we're going to have to move it somewhere. And that's transportation. And then we're going to have to store it. That's storage. And in fact, if we're making something right now that isn't needed, well, we're causing something behind it to wait, aren't we? We don't think of it as waiting because we're very busy, but the customer is waiting. The next job is waiting. Why do you suppose I made 4 slices of toast? Why would I do that? Well, I had 4-slice toaster, right? Now, I don't even know what the customer wants, but unfortunately, this is often the case. And if we don't know what the customer wants, then we may want to maximize the resource. We may say, don't load that oven until there are 4 slices. Let's keep the customer waiting. More efficient, isn't it? Well, not if the customer's not going to buy it. We're going to end up scrapping it. So you see, this whole idea of the 7 wastes, if you look at it from an intuitive standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to look for these wastes. But in our workplaces, regardless of the jobs that we do, we're very practiced at not looking for these wastes. The day is very long, often. Very rarely do I hear somebody say, I had a great day. Well, the reason for that is all the headaches. All the things that you just observed in this process, you can observe these same kinds of wastes in any process. Shigeo Shingo, who was the creator of these 7 wastes, or at least the first person to report them, said, it doesn't matter whether you're making automobiles or baking bread. Waste is still the same. Continuous improvement is not about the things you do well. That's work. That's what your customer's paying for. Continuous improvement is about eliminating all of the things that get in the way of your work every single day, regardless of the job you do. The headaches, the problems, the things that slow you down, the things that cause you to say at the end of the day, I'm very tired, this has been a hard day. That's what continuous improvement is about. So why don't we stop right here and try to gather our thoughts as to what we saw in that process that can be improved. Simple things is what we're looking for. Kaizen. We're looking for the things that can be improved through your experience and common sense. No big machines, no innovation. These are improvements as well, but this is not what we're looking for with Kaizen. We're looking for many small improvements. So what are your ideas?
Pause the tape or DVD here to see if you can identify and suggest ways to remove the 7 types of waste Bruce defined, including motion, weighting, transportation, storage, defects, processing, and overproduction.
Okay, I'll bet by now you've had a lot of ideas as to what can be improved in what we call the current condition. And of course, any process can be improved if we watch and look for the improvements that can be made. Now, let's take a look and see what happened when my wife and I got together to make a better process for making toast. What type of toast would you like?
Wheat.
Okay, how many slices?
Just 1, please.
Very good. Do it. All set.
Thanks, dear.
So now you see what we mean by Kaizen. Simple improvements with big benefits. And simple improvements which come from direct observation and from the thinking and knowledge of people who do the work. For example, moving the toaster closer to the bread. How many times have you experienced this condition? The work you need to do is done on a machine which is far away from you. Why is the machine there? Maybe that was the spot that there was space on the day that the machine arrived. Or maybe that's where the telephone line is, or where the power is. But does it make it easy for you to do the work, or is it causing you to walk long distances back and forth between the two processes? So we focused on a simple improvement. We moved the machine. Another improvement that we made was to the butter. You know, I know that it's necessary to butter toast, but nobody said that the butter needs to be hard as a rock. So we softened the butter, and we put the butter right at the point of use as well. No more searching. Since we don't need it in the refrigerator, we can put it right at the point of use.
While buttering the toast is real work, because the customer has asked for it, we can eliminate the muda, or waste of overprocessing, that is, putting too much butter on the bread, and at the same time eliminate the strain, or mori, of buttering by softening the butter. Finally, we can reduce the mora, or inconsistency of the buttering process, by making it easier to apply a standard and even amount of butter to the toast.
We chose to keep the flatware where it was because that was a good location for it for other things. But notice that I picked the piece of flatware up on my way to the process while asking my wife what she needed. I was very careful in the order of the process because sometimes changing the order of the process can make a big difference. In the first video, I waited a long time to start the toaster. In the second video, I started the toaster as soon as I knew what the customer wanted. And very importantly, I knew what the customer wanted. I knew what she wanted and I knew how many she wanted. And therefore, I was able to make exactly what was needed. No overproduction. In fact, I preheated the toaster so there would be less waiting for the customer. Now the process was long, was still long, but I found a way to make good productive use of my time that was balanced against the machine time. Too often we think that a person's time is the same as the machine's, but it's not. A person can do other things. And once I realized this, I was able to load the toast, get that toaster process going, and then load the dishwasher and clean up. And I had plenty of time. In fact, I was still waiting. I had extra time. So these are simple improvements that were made. You probably thought of all of these as well.
Here's an interesting aside. At this point, it's important to realize that Kaizen is small, stepwise improvement. We're not aiming for perfection on the first try, but for something better than we have. And when we get there, it's likely that we'll notice something more we can do now to make things even better. In that sense, every target condition immediately becomes our new current condition. As you viewed the improved condition, your direct observation may have uncovered further opportunities to reduce waste. What did you see? Did you notice a potential safety hazard with the location of the toaster? Or were you waiting for Bruce to wash his hands? Why were the dishes in the sink in the first place, you might ask? And did you observe that an operation was missing in the target condition? With Kaizen, we are always watching for additional improvement, and the more eyes watching, the more we'll see. Now we've switched on that part of us that is going to notice waste and come up with small changes for the better. Everybody, every day.
And the most important part of this was that the customer was happy. I produced what the customer wanted. I made the part move faster. I made the job easier. I reduced the time between paying and getting paid. I reduced scrap. I reduced the number of steps that I had to take. I reduced searching. I made it a good day for me and for the customer. This is what continuous improvement is all about. So this is my challenge to you. Yeah, toast is simple to make. Go take a look at another process. Go take a look at your job. But this time, watch with an eye for improvement and see how many of these wastes you can identify and remove.
Unmute and start your video.
Make that look easy.
You're on. You can go ahead and start talking.
So we look at that and we think, I don't have any processes that stupid in my place. I mean, that was obviously a little bit staged, but not so much as what you really think. When you really take time and, as Bruce said, direct observation on what's really going on, I guarantee you not only have processes like that in your shop or in your workplace or in your organization, you have processes that you do that are that bad. Just a couple thoughts. The time to produce toast was cut almost in half. The customer got what they wanted, no defects or scrap. And in that time that we cut in half, we got extra work done, loading the dishwasher. And there's obviously more improvements that could be made. So the whole idea of Kaizen is small improvements. We don't need perfection. We don't need to hit the home run. Just do it better than it was, and then keep repeating. After 50 plus years, Toyota is still improving their processes. You know, if you think they've been at it for 50 years, they could be giving away cars almost for free. They'd be so efficient. But that's not the case. They still say there's a lot of waste in what they do. So one of the most lean companies in the world is still working on processes, still doing Kaizen. So think about how could you improve the things you do in your organization, you know, work processes or processes at home when you actually stop and look for the 7 wastes. So I'm not going to go over these in great detail. You can look on the internet, look on YouTube. There's a lot of things, videos on and information on the 7 wastes. But just to remind you, it's inventory, it's waiting. And you know, did it drive you crazy watching Bruce that first his first time through when he's sitting there just waiting for the toaster? You know how long that was? Just a little over 2 minutes. And it seemed like 10 minutes, didn't it? And that's one of those things I've noticed. It drives you crazy when you watch somebody else wait, but we all wait. We do it every day. And it just seems like it's okay. Part of the job, part of the process. Waiting. Defects, scrap. Down at the bottom there, motion, transportation, over processing. Do we do things that we don't need to do? Does that 3-page report need to be 3 pages, or is the boss just really looking for a summary? And lastly, as Bruce said, the worst one can be overproduction. When you make things you don't really need, don't need now. You typically almost go through all these wastes because you've got to do something with it. You've got to store it. You've got to move it. And then you hope at some point that you can still sell it. Of course, there's a lot more to lean than just what I talked about before the video and watching Bruce make toast. There's a whole philosophy behind lean. And I'm just going to run through these really quick because we're rapidly running out of time. Respecting individuals, lead with humility. I mean, that's basic leadership, right? Out of pretty much any leadership book you read. But how often do we really do it? Seeking perfection, knowing that we're not going to be perfect, but on our way to perfection, can we get to excellence? Scientific thinking. How many times do we get, well, that's the way we've always done it? Or, in my opinion, this is the way it should be. Well, that's not really the right way to do it, is it? Scientific thinking means taking a little time, doing some experimentation. You'll see in Lean the idea of plan, do, check, act a lot. Where you've got a plan, this is what we're going to do. You actually do it, then you check the results, and if they're not what you want, then you act and make some changes and repeat the process back through again. It's pretty simple. We all do it, but we also fall in that trap of, it's the way we've always done it. Here's an easy way to do it. We don't have time to fix it. You know, that's the way our work life often is. And if we can take that little bit of time, carve out that time to actually do a simple experiment, do a little bit of testing, actually get some data, get some facts, we can fix a lot of these problems. So on the philosophy side still of lean, focus on the process. How often do we beat up the person if something doesn't work right? Well, that Joe, he's just lazy. That's why we didn't get it done. Right? Sue, she just wasn't working very smart. That's why it didn't get done. Or like Bruce said, whatever it takes. Well, that's not, what kind of way is that to run a business? Whatever it takes. You know, if we go back and when things don't work out the way we want them to, we focus on the process. We'll see a slide a little later where Dr. Deming talks about 85% of the time when things don't go right, when there's problems, it's the process, it's not the people. And if we focus on fixing the process, we make everybody's life a lot better. Quality at the start, build quality into the process. Don't try to inspect it in at the end. This is a good one, this is a bad one, this is a good one, this is a bad one. You know, you got to know they're all good. And Toyota was very good about that. It was one of the first to, they would actually stop the car assembly line and when there was a quality problem and resolve that problem so that it didn't come back. Sometimes when that line was still shut down. So it's doing the tough things to fix the quality instead of just firefighting and saying, well, let's just slap this Band-Aid on this process and knowing that next week it's going to come back again. Improve flow and pull. Again, how often in our process do we do some of it here and some of it there and some of it over here? If you think about flow, where the work just flows from one end to the other, that's always a better way to do the work. Not easy. You got to do some rearranging typically, but that's what flow is. Think systematically. Think the system. How often when there's 5 steps in a process, does the person in the middle fix her process? And that makes it worse on the person behind her and the person in front of her. So it's looking at that entire system. Consistency of purpose, also important, but most important, creating value for the customer. Are we doing what the customer wants and needs? And if we can create that value, then you get a repeat customer, the business is successful, and things are good. So there's lean tools. I'm going to whip through these really quick. So you got a philosophy, and then you've got the tools to actually do the work. There's things like 5S, standardized work, Kata, Kaizen, problem solving, mistake proofing, value stream mapping, all great tools. I'm not going to go through each one of those here, but they're all tools that will help you build on that philosophy, help you improve your processes. There's a little bit of learning involved there, but they're not you know, you don't have to be Einstein to do this stuff. There's a lot of people doing it, a lot of people successfully doing it. One of the things Bruce said was when you eliminate waste, only about 5 to 10% of your process is actually value added. Can you believe that? Here we are, smart people. We've created processes and 90% of the process is waste. I've done that enough times. I thought it was crazy when I first heard it. It is true. We're running out of time to tell these stories here, but this is a story where it was 90% waste, 3 different machines, different parts of the buildings, brought them all together, and instead of 3 days cycle time, it was now 30 minutes. Story 2 was more on office related. This was a new part quote folder, had to be approved by 6 different departments before sales could give the quote to the customer. and the information was actually passed to the 6 departments. It was set on the people's desk or in their inbox for a day or 3, and total lead time to get a quote was 2 weeks. So here the customer is wanting to give us more work, and we take them 2 weeks to get a price. So we brought all the resources together for a daily meeting. They all looked at the same folder, talked to each other, answered their questions. We were able to provide a quote the same day. So now quote time was 1 day, customers happy, and more business. Win-win. Again, Dr. Deming talks about 85% of the reason for failure are deficiencies in the systems, not the people. Don't beat up the people, fix your process. And I hope by now you're starting to see, if you can't describe what you're doing as a process, you really don't know what you're doing. Process improvement, lean, the arrow goes up, change is inevitable, we all live with it. And as Dr. Deming said, it's not really necessary to change. Your survival is not mandatory. I don't know about you guys. For me, I'd like to survive. And we're probably not going to evolve into the octopus type person with 8 arms. So it's, what can we do better? What can we change to make our lives a little easier? How do we compete? How do we improve? How do we do more with less? Well, many of the best companies in the world are using lean principles and tools to improve their processes and organizations. Not saying that you have to do it, but there's a well-beaten path of people who are doing this and successfully doing it. So how does Wabash Valley Lean Network fit into all this? It's a great group. We'd love to have you if you're not already a member. We meet once a month and 1 morning a month, and you get to be around people doing the same job as you do, people fighting the same fights that you do. And you know, you can look at YouTube, you can look at the internet till you're blue in the face, but there's nothing better to be around people that are doing the same thing you do and learn from their experience and from their failures and from their successes. So again, it's highly motivated individuals and leaders driving change and improvement in their organization. A little bit about it, but we'd love to have you as a member. It's $250 for an individual annual membership, $500 for a company membership. We meet every month here in Lafayette or Indianapolis. We also meet in Valparaiso 4 times a year, Bloomington 4 or 5 times a year. It's, you know, you get one idea out of that, you'll pay for your membership. So it's crazy cheap. And there's additional benefits with Purdue MEP. They'll come in, help you for 2 hours. And if you paid for paid consultants before, that $500 gets used up pretty quickly. And access to the Greater Boston Manufacturing Video Library, which they're the folks that did the Toast video. So with that is about it for me. We're getting close to time. We'll try to take a couple questions and see if we can answer those. And I hope you guys, this was quick, but I hope it gave you a little bit of taste for lean, for the benefits it can provide, and it makes you want to look a little deeper into the subject.
Awesome, thank you so much. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Thanks so much to Doug for his time. If you do have questions, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A or in the chat. We've got about 2 or 3 minutes. We do have one from Jacob. It says, can you clarify the processing waste? Is that the lack of a process to handle and identify wastes, or just having a bad process?
It's not necessarily a process. I mean, we didn't set it up that way, but within the process, the way it was set up and the way it's evolved, there's almost always waste in there. And again, Bruce said it in the video, we get so used to doing the process that way that we don't see it. We just don't see it. It's how we do it. It's work. It's what we do every day. And if you go in and you think about it, looking at it, sort of like you did that toast video, and you stand back and you ask the person that does the work, you know, what do you see? What bogs you down? What makes it a bad day for you? And you get a little group together and you look at a process, you'll just find all kinds of improvements that you can make. I will guarantee it.
Thank you for that. I don't see any other questions in the chat. We'll give everyone just a few minutes. We
So
do-
I'll answer one more that I get asked a lot. So I get asked, so I'm completely new to this. If I go to Wabash Valley Lean Network, am I going to feel like a complete idiot? Is it going to be totally over my head? And the answer is no. We've got again, world-class people in there. We've got a lot of people that are just getting started. So you will not feel out of place. And I will tell you, there's not a more welcoming group that I've ever been involved with than the folks that attend Wabash Valley Lean Network. They will be more than happy to talk to you and help you.
Paige says, thank you so much. I've learned so much. I work at the local health department, and it's not something that's been implanted to my knowledge. And someone else said, lean is massive, which is something I am quickly learning. Lean is huge. So with that, I will say thank you to everyone. Thank you to Doug, sincerely for your time. All of the Wabash Valley Lean individuals. We'll turn my camera back on so you can go ahead and see me getting hit by a car over here. So sincerely, thank you guys for joining us today. If you want to learn more about Tippy Connect as well, you can go on tippyconnect.com, find out about our events. You'll get a follow-up email with an invitation to our next event if you did sign up through Zoom. If you didn't, you want to check out Tippy Connect, maybe send some of your young professionals to join us, learn about these kinds of things and other professional developments. Please let us know how we can help. Send me an email, hello@tippyconnect.com. I will see you guys all next month for the continuation of this series with Jose Cabral of CNC integration, I believe is what it's called. And then he will be talking about S6 and all the ways to organize your life. So we have a lot of fun topics coming up. We'll see you guys in February. CNC diverse integrations. Thank you, Megan. Jose Cabral, amazing speaker, just like Doug. Thanks so much, Doug, for having for being here today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, always glad to talk about lean and process improvement. So thanks for having me.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.